Say the line, Bart.
When will FSD unsupervised be available for personal use on personally owned cars?
Before the end of this year.
While I am a huge fan of Tesla's full self-driving and I use it every day myself, it is true that we have heard for many years now that full self-driving will be here by the end of the year. But one thing seems to be true. We do actually seem to be closer than ever to actually being able to sleep in our Tesla vehicles while they take us to our destination. During the last earnings call, there was a lot of talk about full self-driving and actual autonomous Teslas. As of today, Tesla vehicles are not autonomous. They have supervised full self-driving, and they really truly can make it from A to B on a drive with the driver doing pretty much nothing but initiating the drive. While in my experience, that does happen sometimes, more often than not, drives are needing me to intervene for some reason or another. Now, if this is because the Tesla is driving too slowly, say going 45 miles per hour in a 55 zone, or maybe going too quickly, say going 40 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone, or not pulling over for an emergency vehicle, or not following a school speed zone speed limit, what you will notice on the whole if you are using FSD or paying a lot of attention to it is that safety critical disengagements are extremely, extremely rare. Now, I did have what I would consider a safety critical disengagement just a couple of weeks ago. My Cybertruck, which has a worse version of full self-driving than you'll find on a Model Y, went to make an unprotected left turn a little too early for my comfort. There was a vehicle coming, and yes, we waited for it, but the Cybertruck seemed like it was going to turn left straight into the boat that they were trailering behind them. Now, let me know your thoughts on this little video clip, and if you think I made the right decision by taking over. I gotta say, in the moment, even reviewing the clip, it's quite obvious to me that I needed to take over. FSD was going straight for that boat, but when I posted it online, a lot of people said that I just was being too careful, and taking over an FSD would have made it with no problem. So let's talk about what we learned on this latest earnings call, because there were some pretty good questions. There were also some really bad questions, and Tesla told us kind of a lot. On top of that, they showed us their new software that they'll actually be using for the Robotaxi platform, and they announced the day after earnings that employees are already using a closed version of this system with full self-driving supervised. They posted videos of this, and there is custom software in the back of a Tesla Model Y that you can use to start the drive, see the time, see how long it's going to take you, to get to your destination. Now, unfortunately, these videos do have a safety driver in the front seat, but Tesla did specifically say that this was full self-driving supervised still. This was the software that was being used for this program. And to avoid having to wait for any regulatory approvals, they can just plop a person in the front seat and say like, hey, of course you have to take over if there's going to be an imminent collision, but other than that, do not touch anything. So Tesla is planning on having paid autonomous rides in Austin, Texas in June of 2025. Tesla has been saying this for a long time, and it seems like it is a go. This will start with only 10 to 20 Model Ys on day one, but Elon Musk says that this will quickly scale from there. He also said anyone theoretically should be able to go to Austin and try it out if they're interested. It won't be financially relevant until the middle or second half of 2026, but to be honest, that's not really my focus in this video. I'm more just interested in the technology, and this should quickly scale to other cities. But this made me think, what's the difference between this and Waymo? I mean, Waymo kind of already does this. They have tons of cities under their belt. They started in Phoenix, Arizona in a very small area. They expanded that out to a larger area. Now they're in San Francisco, and they're in other places where you can use Waymo. Well, thankfully, this question was actually asked, like, what's the difference? Waymo kind of already does this. And the difference is that Tesla's vehicles are significantly cheaper and higher volume than Waymo's vehicles. The idea from Tesla has always been, once we get this right, it is going to deploy extremely quickly all over the place. Whereas Waymo needs HD maps and a lot of planning and fine tuning to get their software working in a new city, Tesla, theoretically, at least their approach has been that once they get this working at all, you'll be able to drop it all over the place. Now, there was some more talk about localities and differences in the driving in different areas, but we'll get back to that in a minute. What I want to talk about next is the difference between Robotaxi and Cybercab, and I'm actually glad that this was cleared up. I mean, I think we know that Cybercab is a product and Robotaxi is the actual thing that will pick you up and drop you off without a driver, but it can get a little confusing using those two terms. So just to clear it up, Cybercab is the product. It is what we saw at the event in Tesla with the two crazy doors. There's only two seats. There is no steering wheel, no pedals, and it's a platform that is dedicated to just be a Robotaxi. That's all it can be. Of course, unless Tesla adds some steering wheel and pedals, but we'll just say that it's only going to be a Robotaxi. No human driver can ever operate this thing. Next to that is a Robotaxi, and on the call, Elon said that's any S, 3, X, or Y that can drive autonomously without a person in the driver's seat. Now, he suspiciously left out Cybertruck. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but he did the same thing at the Cybercab event. When the Cybercab was first revealed, he was up on stage talking about, yeah, you guys are going to have unsupervised full self-driving, by the end of whatever he said at the time. And He said Model S, 3X, and Y. And I remember somebody from the audience actually shouted out like Cybertruck. And he goes, well, yeah, Cybertruck too. So maybe for some reason he's just not saying it, but it's just kind of weird to me. On the call, they said, quote, the vast majority of the Tesla fleet that we've made is capable of being a robotaxi or robotic taxi. So again, that's kind of been the plan for a long time from Tesla, is that they're building all these millions of vehicles, they're selling them to customers, but one day they'll flip that switch and the customers can either put them on the Robotaxi network if they want to make some additional revenue. I'm skeptical of these things, but I'm just, going with Tesla's ideas here. Or the person could just use it as a personal chauffeur to get them from point A to point B. Tesla did say that the current supervised full self-driving is already incredibly capable. And if you've used it, you have to agree, it is pretty amazing. Now, the amount of amazement each person has is going to be different. So I found, I've always been a big fan of the technology and excited for the future, but I found a lot of people have even leapfrogged me in their excitement. I'm still skeptical on, my car that's in my driveway being able to take me somewhere while I sleep anytime soon. A lot of people are saying their car's already there. They have multiple zero intervention drives per day, but I'm finding myself, I often have to help the car with mostly things like speed adjustments or getting out of the way of other people or just like awkward situations, not imminent collisions or anything like that. But it's still something where sure, I could technically sit in my car and not do anything, and I do believe it would get me to my destination, but it would be way more awkward. It would get in people's ways. It would probably make people around me a little more angry than they need to be. So one thing I try to do is I look at it from the perspective of like, okay, what if I, passed out right now? Would my car make it there, or would I crash into a wall on the way? And I, am pretty sure 999 times out of 1,000, the vehicle would make it there. And I'd arrive at my destination and then wake up. But while we're still in the supervised mode in the driver's seat, I see no reason to let my car go 10 under the speed limit or take a turn way too slowly or not take a small gap when it's definitely a gap that's big enough to take, but it's waiting for other vehicles. I'll just push it through those scenarios. Some people are also talking about a supervised versus unsupervised option in the future. So let's say we're in the future, Tesla has unsupervised FSD, you can sleep on the way to your destination. We're there. What if you don't want to pay for it? Right now, supervised full self-driving is $99 or $100 a month. What if Tesla says, okay, you can keep your supervised FSD for $99 a month, but we're going to charge $199 a month for unsupervised FSD, where now you can sleep or, text or do whatever you want while the vehicle is driving. And it's something they said they've thought about. And I am not surprised by this. Tesla's always thinking of different ways to make money or push products to customers. So I'm not surprised to hear they've thought about it, but this is going to be something, we're talking far future, that's going to end up like seatbelts or airbags or something like that. It first came to luxury cars. It was first an expensive option you had in the car. And then when the data came out that this was saving, tons of lives, then it became mandatory on all vehicles, even going up to like the backup camera in new vehicles today. That is government mandated in the United States. I think it started back in like 2014 or something. A backup camera used to be an expensive, cool, extra feature of a vehicle. Now it's mandated. Every car, even the cheapest vehicle you can find, has to have that feature. I do believe eventually in the future that full self-driving autonomous vehicles is something that will have to be put into the cars. I don't want to get off on too much of a rant, but think of all the crazy accidents, the deaths we have on the roads. I'm mostly talking about USA because that's what I'm most familiar with, but all over the world, and what they're caused by. Very rarely are they caused by outside forces or the vehicle, having something break and then crashing. It's usually because the human makes a mistake. We all make mistakes all the time, of course, or misjudges something, or is on drugs, or gets road rage and causes an accident, and it leads to, worse repercussions. So once we see the data of, man, these autonomous vehicles are barely ever crashing, and even when they do, they applied the brakes way earlier than any person would, so the injuries were less severe in that accident, you're not going to be able to get away with not having this on your vehicle. And then going into that rant, I know there's other rants you could then go into of like government control and all this stuff, and it's worth talking about, but let's continue this video about something else. So Tesla is thinking in the next couple of years, there's going to be millions of these robotaxis on the road, because again, we're starting in Austin, Texas with 10 or 20, but this is going to be another one of those S curves that Elon loves to talk about, and Tesla has shown that they do with different products, where you just have a couple and then all of a sudden you are adding and adding. No one can keep up with the numbers. And once they conquer Austin, it should easily be able to move to other cities in Texas, and then other cities in the South, and then the rest of the US, and then the rest of the world. And if Tesla is correct, remains to be seen. But if they're correct, they have cars. They already have millions of vehicles all over the world with hardware 3 and hardware 4. And again, that's a whole nother thing that wasn't brought up on the call, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But is this going to include hardware 3 vehicles, or do they need some type of retrofit to make it work? But either way, there are millions of these vehicles that are in Tesla's mind capable of doing this. And so it should quickly scale to having millions of robotaxis all over the world. It's just crazy to even think about. It may not happen, but if it happens the way Tesla is planning, it's going to be a crazy next couple of years. So something that came up on the call was about localized parameters. And parameters are like something in the AI that kind of like the way it drives around. I'm not a pro in this stuff, so I don't want to delve too much into it. But basically having different parameters for different areas. And Elon specifically said, his example was like, hey, if you're a great driver in Texas, you might not be great in, a snowstorm in Manhattan or something like that. And thank you, because snow is something we've been concerned about for a long time. These different weather phenomenon we've been really concerned about for FSD for a long time. And I'm so thankful. Like, obviously Tesla is working on that and it's something they think about, but it's not something they really talk about much. So Elon did say there would be different parameters possibly for different areas. Now, he said this would be like nice to have. It's not something you have to have. He didn't say it would necessarily be required, but that it would add value, if they did this. It sounds like it's something they're kind of kicking around. But Tesla is thinking about these different things. And yes, you cannot drive the same way on a sunny 70-degree day that you do in, below temperature, blizzard, windy, snowing conditions. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, talking about these parameters and the different driving conditions, something was mentioned that I didn't like to hear. It was actually not a very good quote. And so the same strengths and weaknesses will be present for digital neural net and cameras versus biological neural net and eyes. And it's like, no, we want our autonomous vehicles to be superhuman. And I always go back to the example of when Teslas had radar on them, it would bounce that radar signal under the car in front of you to see the car in front of it. So even if you with your eyes or your cameras or whatever couldn't see two cars ahead, the radar could always see that car ahead. And you saw these examples on YouTube where two cars ahead, they're slamming on the brakes. The car in front of you doesn't do it because they're not paying attention, they're texting or whatever. The Tesla slams its brakes. The car in front of the Tesla crashes. The Tesla saves itself because it could see so far ahead. Now, of course, the Tesla vehicles already are going to be superhuman in that they're looking in all directions at all times. Humans can't do that. They will eventually have faster reaction times. I don't think they're there now. If you're like a young, really capable driver that's really paying attention, I do think that we are still a little bit quicker on reacting to things than the Teslas are, but they will get faster than humans. It seems inevitable to me, at least. But yeah, that wasn't a quote I really liked. Now, he was just talking about how, like, yeah, if, say, I'm totally making this up, this wasn't on the call, but say like the car gets totally covered in mud, every single camera can't see, like, yeah, of course, then it can't drive. You'll have to, fix that situation. But those situations are not going to be common enough that it's something that Tesla's really worried about, it sounds like. And then when talking about the localized stuff, Ashok also kind of backed that up and said, like, yep, we're talking about that, but we used more of a generalized approach when we put FSD into China. They were not allowed to use, Tesla wasn't allowed to like export data from China to their, training facilities in the US. I don't know, all the, China crap where they censor everything. But even with that restriction, Tesla was able to enable full self-driving over in China by using more general approach. And now that they're collecting that data in China, they can process it in China and make the system better. So that was kind of his example of like, yeah, maybe we'll do some localized stuff, but we don't really need to. One thing that they said they are having trouble with is validation. They have all these Teslas driving around Austin, testing this stuff out. They gave the number of 10,000 miles. I don't know if it's more or less than that, but it was like, we can go 10,000 miles and not get an intervention. That's more miles than, a lot of people drive in a year. And so it's getting difficult for Tesla in the real world to drive these cars around and have them mess up. Now, I am going to throw out there, their definition of mess up and my definition of mess up are probably different. And it makes sense. I get it because, if a Robotaxi messes up by going a little too slow and then figuring it out and accelerating, like, who cares? It's not really a big deal. But for me, if my supervised full self-driving car is going too slow, I'm just going to hit the accelerator. So I will see those type of interventions and you as well a lot more often than Tesla will, because it's not, they're more talking about imminent collisions, getting completely stuck to the point that it needs like remote intervention or something like that. So Tesla's having a hard time. The cars are so good already at this point. Tesla's having a hard time validating that they're good enough to be like a Robotaxi. Now, how you fix this, and obviously Tesla already knows this and they're doing it, but yeah, one car can go say 10,000 miles before an intervention. But if you have 10,000 cars, right, then you'll get an intervention every mile that those cars drive. So it's not quite as impressive when you look at it that way. Like, yeah, 10,000 miles per intervention is pretty good. But if you have 10,000 cars, you're getting a mess up every mile that's being driven by all these 10,000 cars. And Tesla's talking about millions of cars. So now you're getting a mess up every like 0.1 miles or 0.001 miles. It's not even close to good enough for full autonomy all over the place. And this is something that I've wanted to make a full video about, but you really need like millions and millions of miles per critical intervention or per critical disengagement to make it worth it. Now, sorry, I got to go a tiny bit of a tangent on this, but where this comes into play is you compare it to humans. So if humans are getting in, I think human accident is every like 500,000 miles, and a human like accident crash that's severe enough to cause a death or something, it's like every few million miles. I'm not sure at that point, but let's say every 500,000 miles, a human crashes a car. So let's say FSD can go 2 million miles. That's 4 times better than a human. You have 4 times less crashes now if all vehicles suddenly turn into autonomous Teslas. That sounds great. But Tesla, number one, is going to have millions of vehicles on the road. So it's going to happen a couple of times a day. You're going to have this happen. And number two, all of those incidents are going to a singular source. So people will be like, oh, take them off the road, right? So it's a lot more complicated than being, 10 times better than a human. My numbers, I've just done some like fun calculations. I think you got to get to like 1,000 or even 10,000 times better than a human before you're like widely rolling this out everywhere. But that's another video as well in itself. Now, the big question, when will you and I, customers of Tesla that have paid for full self-driving for years, or we've paid for it 3 times or whatever, when will we have full self-driving, unsupervised for personal use on our vehicles? Before the end of the year, in certain geographies, maybe. So again, it's by the end of the year. Like, okay, we've heard that a million times. That doesn't really help us, although it does seem we're actually getting close this time. And again, it's going to be Austin. So, Tesla recently rolled out the early access program to like a lot more people, but a lot more people, they were pretty much all in Texas or a few in California. So that probably has something to do with it. That way they can probably avoid regulatory stuff. I'm just guessing, but if they push out this opt-in thing, they can probably do it easier than if they just send unsupervised willy-nilly to customers. So that's just me guessing. They said it needs to be meaningfully safer, not just the same safeness as a human driver, which is what I was just talking about. It's going to go city by city again. So Austin will have it, and then probably places in California, and then, probably mostly the South where it's not snowing, and then it'll, move to other things. But they were saying most customers in the US by the end of the year is what they think. I don't think so, but that's what they said on the call. And now one of my biggest questions I have had about full self-driving has been answered. And that is, what does unsupervised mean? I keep asking this question because does unsupervised mean the car will drive with nobody in it, A to B, or it'll drive, but you have to sit there and kind of be ready to take over, but you don't have to pay attention, right? Those are both kind of unsupervised. So I'm sitting there on my phone and the car drives me, all the way to work. That's still unsupervised. But if it does get stuck, or if it does have an error or something, I'm sitting there and I go, oh, okay, let me just take over. Elon answered this directly. There was no vagueness in this answer. The acid test, can you fall asleep in your car and wake up at your destination? That's what he called unsupervised. And that's kind of been what I've been saying. And so it sounds like that is what they're aiming for by the end of the year for actual customers who have purchased this software. That's insane. I'm elated. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want it to. And this has been like one of my biggest thoughts since starting all of this stuff is like, if I could get an extra 20 minutes of sleep on my way to work, oh my goodness, my life would improve so much. So that would be insane. So one of my biggest questions about unsupervised FSD ever has been answered finally today. It's been years of wondering this. This gives me another question. Does this mean that somebody who's not capable of driving could purchase this for use? So say somebody who's blind or doesn't have a driver's license or is 15 years old. Could you put those people in the car? Because that's a whole nother leap. Because if I'm sleeping and an alarm goes off, whoa, okay, and then I take over, right? Might not be the best situation, but still, it's a lot different than the car driving with no human in it. So that's another question. They'd have to go through government and stuff, but could you have some kind of thing on the car that signifies like, yeah, this person isn't driving, they don't have a license or whatever, you don't have to worry about them. It's crazy. Or like, oh, it's speeding, send the ticket to Tesla, right? Oh, the car went through a school zone and didn't slow down, send the ticket to Tesla. So liability is kind of the other thing we got to look for here is, unsupervised. Is Tesla going to take liability? Because they better. I'm not driving, right? That's their definition. And then finally, what's the required software on Tesla's end to get to a level where it doesn't need to be supervised? This was a really good question, and Ashok kind of answered it by saying they're working on a number of items and they're aware of interventions happening in the public, and that's why we're hardcore burning it down, I think is what it said. I went and tried to take the transcripts. I don't know if it was exactly the right words there, but yeah. So they're trying to pick the initial launch cities, focus on those, and then expand it from there. So again, it kind of goes back to the question of like that's kind of what Waymo did. Like they picked a launch city and then expanded it from there. This is supposed to be more generalized and it's supposed to scale faster. And again, Tesla has the volume of vehicles all over the world, whereas Waymo, their vehicles are much more expensive and they can't make as many nearly as quickly as Tesla can. Nobody can make cars as fast as Tesla, like in any capacity pretty much. So maybe some Chinese companies that I'm not familiar with, but anyway, yeah, they're aware of our grievances. Keep doing your report button or doing your report button on your car and leaving the voice note when it messes up, just in case. Hopefully we'll get a full self-driving update here soon. But yeah, this is very exciting. I'm hopeful this time that we're going to see some real strides towards this unsupervised stuff. But as always, keep expectations in check. But yeah, leave your comments down below. You'll see me in the next video.